Hello and thank you for joining me again today for another daily drawing. As before, we're just going to stop for 20 minutes, put aside all of our other thoughts and everything else that we've got going on today and focus purely on making a drawing and drawing together. So today we're going to have a go at drawing some koi fish. So for today's drawing, you'll need some paper, and for the first part, a pencil and a rubber. And then for the second part, if you have some coloured pencils or crayons or felt pens, that would be fab. But if not, you can just do it in black and white as well. So whether you want to do the drawing in black and white, or in colour, or in a bit of both, that will look fab today. So don't forget our two important rules. First of all, focus on the process, not on the outcome. So don't try to make your drawing look exactly like the image, and don't get worried about whether it's looking good or whether it's not looking good, and just focus on the enjoyment of making marks and putting down colours onto the paper. And second of all, draw with me and not like me. So don't try and copy my drawing. Use it as a little bit of inspiration, but remember, we're just drawing along together. You work at your pace, and if you finish early, just skip ahead to see the last part of the video. So go grab those materials and your beverage of choice, and I'll see you in a moment. So I'm going to start by just taking my HB pencil, but if you've got a 2B or a 4B, that would be fine as well. Just make sure it's nice and sharp, because we're going to be using the side of the lead to put down some grey tone onto our paper. So we just want to cover an area with grey shading, and I'm using my finger to put a little bit of pressure onto the pencil so that I can control exactly how hard I want to push to get a nice even tone. So it's up to you whether you want to work in a sort of rectangular shape today or a square, and how big you'd like to work. And I'm going to just make an area around about A5 size. And what I'm going to try and do is get a reasonably even layer of tone, and you can see here my pencil's already getting a little blunt, so I'm spinning it round, and if you've got a sharpener then you can sort of sharpen your pencil quite regularly. So all we want to do here is just get a reasonably dark grey, so I'm just filling in some of the gaps that I've missed and putting another layer or two of tone down on the paper till I get something that's reasonably even and reasonably dark. So my pencil's starting to wear down quite a lot here, so I might have some sort of sharpish edges. So it's better if you can sharpen it a little bit as you go. But I'm not overly worried about having a few lines in here, just trying to make it as even as I can. So I'm just evening up the sides here so you can make your shaded area a little bit more of a rectangle or a square shape, just filling in some of the rougher parts on the sides. So my pencil's starting to wear down quite a lot now, and you can see how you get nice smooth tones when you've worn down the sides a little, but it is better to sharpen it. And now, once you've done that, you want to grab yourself a rubber and take a look at these fish shapes. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and erase some of those fish shapes out of the shaded area. So they're kind of little long teardrop shapes, so I'm just keeping my rubber nice and clean and then just flicking it and kind of cleaning it quite regularly on a blank part of my page so that I can rub out a nice white mark. So I'm not too worried about copying the image and getting the fish in exactly the same places as they are in the image. All I'm doing is using the shapes as a bit of inspiration and thinking about how to fit these shapes into the frame that I've got here. So you might want to make some of the fish quite large or vary the size a little, have them swimming in different directions. And just think about how you might want to fit them around each other, the spaces around them, and just the shape that you might want to make each fish. So you might have some coming into the frame from the sides, some that maybe are overlapping each other, just like they are in the image, swimming in different directions, basically whatever you like. So rub out some areas to create the shapes of the different fish. And just keep your rubber nice and clean. And if you've got a kneadable eraser or a putty rubber, this would work really well for this part. So we're using our eraser as a drawing tool really, and we're trying to just create some very simple fish shapes. You can see I'm not worried too much about the tail or even like having a perfectly round shape, because we're going to work back into these once we've rubbed out the shapes that we want. So give a little bit of thought to how you might fill in some spaces and have some areas that you actually might leave with quite a lot of the shading showing. So I've got some clusters of little fish together and some areas where it's quite spaced out. So when you get to points where you want to dust off all of the little bits of rubber shaving, just be careful when you rub your hand over it that you don't end up smudging your pencil. So it's actually better just to take your paper and just give it a little shake rather than try to dust it off with your hand. And you can see that there might be still areas you want to rub out. And as I said, if you've got a kneadable eraser, then it can be really helpful for getting the white areas just that little bit whiter. But if you keep your other rubber nice and clean, that will do the same job. I'm reasonably happy with where I've put the shapes of my fish, and the next step is to put some details in, but you want to be really careful that you don't end up smudging your shading with the side of your hand. So just grab some paper that you can lean your hand on, just any scrap paper, so that you're not smudging it while you're adding in the details. And I'm going to be working in colour pencil, but you could also work just in black and white or in pen, and I'm looking at putting in just some colour onto the white areas that I've erased. And you can decide whether you want to put in some detail, for example a little bit more shading down one side of the fish, but you can decide that later as well. So just putting down some flat colour to start with is good. And you might be thinking also about putting in some of the patterns that you see on some of the fish, specifically if you are working in black and white. So if you've got a pen or a pencil, these patterns could be quite good. So you could use a regular pencil, or I can show you here with a black colouring pencil, but a pen would be fab for this too. So looking at the different little patterns and putting them in kind of like just little simple shapes. So if you're just working in black and white, this will work really well, and you can look more at these fish in the image and use these as a bit of a reference. If you are thinking about these patterns, you could also do these in colour, so have some fish that are solid in colour and some that are patterned. And you could also think about the tone and the colours that are in the fish, so you could put down a bit more tone by just pushing a little harder with your colouring pencil, and noticing these fins here are a little bit darker as well. So if you put those in, you can either do them with a little bit more pressure, or you could grab another colour to show a little bit of a darker tone there too. So if I use my red pencil here and put it on top of the orange and just put a little bit more definition into some areas of the fish. So I'm using the image to help me a little bit with my ideas. So this fish is a little darker. I'm going to put in more of my red colour, and noticing these little fins that are at the sides of each fish, I'm going to just put some of these in with my colouring pencil. But because some of these fins are also white, I might mix a little bit of colour and also do a bit more erasing. I'm just going to add the little fin shapes onto this patterned fish as well. And I'm thinking about how I might leave some of the fish a little more white possibly, but I want to definitely think about having some little white fins. So I'm just going to rub little shapes out with a nice clean rubber. And then you just define the fish shape a little more. And I'm getting to know the shape of each fish quite well, so I'm not really looking at the image much in terms of getting exactly the same fish, but I'm thinking about the shapes that I can see, so whether I can see a little bit of the fin at the bottoms of fish and what shapes that might be, as well as the little side fins and the tail. And there's fish that have got orange and black patterns combined, and if I look at this picture here, which I can use as another reference, the black and the orange patterns might overlap a little bit, mixed together. So I'm going to put a bit more of an orange pattern on top of and beside the black shapes on this fish here. And thinking about this yellow fish, I'm going to grab my yellow colour and make one of my fish a beautiful golden yellow. So I'm putting in the fins and a little bit of the head shape, and then put some colour onto this one. Just going to add a little bit of orangey yellow just to give it a little bit more of a golden colour. So just carry on colouring in the fish or adding the patterns in with your black pencil if you're not using colour. Just decide what you'd like to add to each fish, kind of looking at the images as reference when you need it. But just playing really and being quite free with adding different little shapes and patterns to each fish, making the tail and the fin bigger or smaller, and just having a little bit of fun and filling in these little fish in their pond. You can look now and again at the different pictures and use them to help you, but you can also make it up as much as you want. So let's just enjoy adding in some patterns and colours to each of the fish. So you can look at any images of koi fish. If you feel a bit stuck, then you could just do a little bit of a Google image search and find some other patterns and colours that you might want to add in. Or you can just use quite a limited palette of just an orange, a red and a yellow. So I'm being very imprecise with the shapes that I'm rubbing out. I'm just putting in some rough tail shapes and fin shapes for a couple of the fish, but if you want to be more careful and more precise, then you can do that. Or if you want to keep it really loose and really scribbly and really sketchy, you could work that way too. So just working in at your own pace, and if you finish earlier than me, then just skip to the end just to see the last little bit. Or you can take a lot of time over this and just enjoy slowly, carefully adding the patterns and colours into each of the little white shapes. So I'm clearly enjoying this way too much because I'm over our 20 minutes, and I should really stop, but I'm just going to add a little bit more definition into some of the fish, just darkening some areas a little bit, just to give the shapes a little bit more clarity. So it's good just to take a little step back when you're near the end and just review your drawing as a whole and just see if there's any spots that you feel are needing a little bit more attention, just maybe a little bit of a stronger tone or a stronger colour, and just try to bring your whole image together so there's a nice balance to it. So I'll do a few more finishing touches and then I think I will leave mine there. So I really hope you enjoyed drawing along with me today, and I'd really love to see all of your koi fish. So share them with me on Instagram at the City Workshop, all the details are below, and join me again tomorrow for another daily drawing. So I'll see you tomorrow.